What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tuesday Newsday. Shh-sha. I'm your host, Max Scoville, and Tuesday Newsday is the show that we do on Tuesdays where we talk about the news. That should be fairly self-explanatory, so let's move on. Now, the big news today is probably the fact that Microsoft has announced that the Xbox is effectively getting a $100 price cut, which is happening because they are selling a version that does not include the Kinect, which, oh, by the way, about a year ago, they said it had to have. It was absolutely necessary that every Xbox One have a Kinect, but now they've said that that's not the case, and that as of June 9th, you'll be able to purchase an Xbox One without that stupid thing, the camera thing, for $399. So, in other words, Sunset Overdrive has gotten a $100 price cut. Yeah! While we're on the subject of Microsoft gradually removing their own head from their ass, it's also worth noting that Xbox Live Gold is no longer required to use Netflix or Hulu, which means that I will plug my 360 back in and stop using exclusively my PS3 and PS4 to play my favorite game, which is Magnum P.I. Season 1. Now, speaking of Xbox One, the thing that makes me want it the most is Sunset Overdrive, and oh shit, we finally have our first look at what the game actually looks like in action. If this is old news to you, forgive me. It's a weekly show, we do it once a week, so now excuse me while I gush about Sunset Overdrive. You might remember there was that teaser site that went up about the energy drinks, Delirium Overcharge XT, and I suppose that perhaps the zombies we see in the game, the creatures running around who are attracted to this mysterious orange liquid, are in fact people who have overdosed on this energy drink, perchance. Well, it seems like that might be the case because they are referred to as the OD'd. As for the game itself, it looks like Infamous and Saints Row had a baby. I am standing with that description pretty well. There's lots of free running. I guess you have this whole kind of inertia thing. You keep moving, you keep wall running, and it lets you bounce around and do stuff. And the whole thing, I think they call it velocity. The whole thing is you're supposed to kind of maintain speed, kind of get this whole jet grind radio thing going. And yeah, of course, it's an Insomniac game, so there are tons of wacky weapons. There's a Roman candle gun. There is a bowling ball gun. There is a gun that shoots teddy bears with dynamite attached to them. Seems like a pretty good time, if you ask me. Something that really makes me happy about this trailer is they show off some of the big fancy enemies that you're going to fight in the game. They're not just your same kind of gross-looking sort of. They kind of look like cute versions of the infected from The Last of Us. Don't you think so? They look like cute ones. They look like slightly bigger eyes, like cartoony versions. If they made like a Last of Us, Saturday morning cartoon, that would be a terrible thing. Harry Partridge, go nuts with that. Anyway, back to Sunset Overdrive. In addition to the cool enemies, you'll also encounter some other factions in Sunset City, where the game takes place. Worth noting, this takes place in the year 2027, so the distant future where everybody is overdosed on energy drinks. And some of the other factions include this apparent Boy Scout explorer troop who have decided to adopt the way of the samurai, and then these LARPers who take live-action role-playing extremely seriously, so you're probably going to have to fight them. Yeah, moving on. Other big news last week that we didn't report on because it happened the day after we did last episode. Nintendo announced that Pokemon, what the fuck are they calling it? Pokemon Omega Ruby and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, which are going to be remakes of Ruby and Sapphire for the 3DS. So the Game Boy Advance games, they're remaking them for the 3DS, and they're going to have the cool kind of, polygonal, detailed 3D Pokemon sprites that X and Y did. So that's something to be worth being excited about. That seems like a good time. People seem really excited about that. My Tumblr basically exploded with just Pokemons everywhere, just Pokemons up the wazoo. So that's great news for Nintendo. What's not great news is the Wii U is continuing to suck at selling itself. Anyway, I don't want to talk about business stuff because business stuff is boring. So instead of that, let's talk about Native American Alaskan girls and the adventures they go on with their Arctic fox friends. Never Alone is an upcoming game. This is actually apparently the first video game developed by a Native Alaskan game studio. The word Eskimo is wrong here. You don't want to say that. The actual tribe is Inupiaq? Am I saying that right? I don't know. Anyway, it's a puzzle platformer where you play as a little girl and her Arctic fox, and all of the concepts of the game are being pulled from actual, Native American folklore, which is kind of awesome because that shit gets crazy. I'm not very familiar with much of it, but I'm always happy to see a game drawing from actual mythology, and should be interesting how this goes. Back to the loud shit with the guns. Epic Games has announced that there's going to be a new Unreal tournament that they are going to be developing with the community. They have stressed this is not going to be a free-to-play game. This is going to be a free game. They're going to develop this very openly, very transparently, publicly. I guess the source code is going to be out there on GitHub for Unreal 4 developers to work with. The whole way that they're going to try and turn a profit from this is by having a marketplace where players can, create their own content and share it, and then Epic will take a cut of that. I don't know how many of you guys were around back in the heydays of Unreal Tournament, back when that was the big PC shooter, but there was a huge amount of community involvement, and everyone was making skins for everything. You could play as, like, you know, Spinal from Killer Instinct, and you could run around with the rocket launcher, and you could be fighting against Duke Nukem and, like, one of the Battletoads, and then, like, Asia Carrera, the porn star, who actually made her own Unreal skins. The 90s was a strange time for games, and hopefully that, you know, turns around and comes back there. In super boring anticlimactic news, I forget which day of the week it was last week, but one day we basically got, in a half-hour period, 2 big announcements of games being delayed. Dying Light is being pushed to 2015, so if you wanted to play another open-world parkour Dead Island, you're going to have to wait on that. It is going to be an E3, so people are going to get a chance to check it out. My theory about this is that that's being published by WB Games. Dead Island, of course, was being published by Deep Silver. Both games are developed by Techland. I think WB Games has a much higher standard for quality control than Deep Silver does. I don't mean that to be like super rude or anything, but I think WB does keep a much closer watch on what's coming out of their publishing. So, you know, that's cool. Other news, Elder Scrolls Online is being delayed 6 months for consoles. So, sorry, you know, people don't seem super crazy about that game for Mac and PC, but maybe they're going to go in and tweak some stuff, or maybe it's just, maybe they're just dragging their asses there. Who knows? Video games are so exciting when they don't come out when they say they will. Guys, I'm sick of talking about video games. Can we talk about something else, like Batman? If you missed it this morning, visionary director Zack Snyder tweeted a photo of what Batman is going to look like in the upcoming Batman vs. Superman movie, and he's super buff. He's a super muscular, broody Batman, played by none other than Ben Affleck. Batfleck. Low-hanging fruit. God, I hate it when people do that. Governator. Batfleck. Portmanteau. Yeah, I think this looks good. I'm really fond of this design. I was surprisingly not completely disappointed by Zack Snyder's Superman. A lot of people really hated that. A lot of people really hate that guy. I pretty much hate everything he's done since Dawn of the Dead, but I thought that movie was actually pretty watchable, and I'm excited to see what he does with Batman. People are pointing out this looks like the New 52 costume design from the recent stuff. I would say it looks more like a cross between the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns design and Jim Lee's Hush design. You got the big, huge bat thing on the chest. He's kind of bulky. He's got the little tiny ears, so he looks kind of like a weasel. I've heard a rumor somewhere that this is actually going to be drawing kind of heavily from the whole Dark Knight Returns Batman, and this is going to be like an older, more brooding, kind of paranoid, angry, dark Batman. Curious to see how Ben Affleck handles that. In any case, there you go. It's Batman, and he's by the Batmobile. And the Batmobile looks more like a Batmobile than the Tumbler did, but it still looks kind of like a Batmobile with the off-road tires. So fun fact about the Batmobile in Batman Forever was originally going to be designed by none other than Swedish concept artist and illustrator H.R. Giger, who you might know because he designed the Alien from the film Alien, and because he died this morning. This is actually really shitty news. I'm sorry to end on a down note, but I think it's worth taking a moment to actually reflect on this guy's work and his significance in the realm of pop culture. Hans-Rudi Giger, the amazing, nightmarish, terrifying Swiss surrealist illustrator who he was working on the concept art for Dune back in the day. He worked with Ridley Scott and designed the Xenomorph and the Space Jockey for the movie Alien. He went to do designs for Species. Poltergeist 2, did a bunch of critters in that. More importantly than that, he pretty much changed the way that sci-fi looks, because you can't deny that Alien wasn't one of the most influential science fiction movies, and a whole lot of people imitated that and borrowed from that. Yeah, it's crazy. I actually was going to be designing the Batmobile for Batman Forever, and it would have looked like, it would have looked like this. I don't know what this is. Looks like some kind of weird 4-person sex toy. Now, obviously, H.R. Giger was hugely influential on the world of science fiction and all that kind of stuff, and gross, creepy things that sort of look like dicks. However, he was also rather influential in just kind of how we buy media, and the fact that some media is age-gated, whether that means an M rating on the package of a video game or the infamous parental advisory sticker that you would see on CDs back when people still bought CDs at a record store. Now I think it's just a little red thing that says explicit on iTunes or whatever. Okay, so flashback to 1986. People still buy these things called records, which are printed on circles of wax. A particular punk band, you might have heard of them, called the Dead Kennedys. I'm a big fan of them. They released an album called Frankenchrist, which, as you might suspect, is sort of an edgy album to begin with. But in this record, they include a poster of an H.R. Giger painting called Landscape 20, which I'm not even sure if I can show it on YouTube. I don't want to get us flagged, so I'm going to sort of blur this out. But the thing you're looking at here is a whole bunch of penises going into vaginas, just sort of tiled along there. This poster was very offensive, and a whole lot of people, a whole lot of moms got really huffy about this and kicked up a big stir. And at the time, Tipper Gore was pretty mad because she walked in on her daughter listening to the Purple Rain soundtrack and hearing the line in the Prince song, Darling Nikki, where he says something about masturbating with a magazine. And so all these moms got together, all these Washington moms, and formed the Parents Media Parents Music Resource Center. And this whole thing started what would become one of the bigger kind of media trials of the 80s, and long story short, they started going after different musicians for questionable subject matter, and this was kind of a precursor to the ESRB. So it's a bunch of people who aren't particularly invested in the media that they are critiquing and deciding what is offensive and what isn't offensive. Long story short, they got those little parental advisory stickers on there. The Dead Kennedys broke up because of all the legal fees they had to pay. And H.R. Giger, back in his castle in Switzerland, probably didn't give a shit because he was living off of alien royalty money. Anyway, politics aside, if you're, we want to show some respect to H.R. Giger and really learn about his significance in the world of science fiction, and also just learn a lot about how things used to be done, go check out the behind-the-scenes movie that they did for Alien, which is just incredibly kick-ass. You can find it in the special features if you go buy the Blu-ray. Yeah, it's fucking nuts. It's really cool stuff to see. That doesn't have to do with video games, but hey, you might have learned something by accident. That's about all the time we have for today. I'm Max Scoville. This has been Tuesday Newsday, and Max rambles on about a Swiss surrealist painter for a whole while. If you'd like to help us out, produce the content that we do here, you should check out dtoid.tv/glide. Glide is a service where you can take those games that you're not playing, and you can send them to a place, and somebody will buy them, and then they give you the money, and you can go and get a different game. You know what? Just watch the video after this. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. For all of the news as it happens, not just a week later, go check out Destructoid.com. And of course, stay tuned right here to our YouTube, where we put up videos that are actually even dumber than this one. I'll see you guys around. Take it easy.
Fed up with the hassle of selling your games online? Well, stop doing it that way then! Introducing Glide, the easiest way to transform those smelly old games you don't want anymore into hot, sexy piles of cash. After creating a free account, just click Sell on the Glide website, find your item, describe its condition, and name your price. That's all it takes to list it. No description writing or picture taking necessary. Yeah. Once your item sells, Glide will send you a shipping kit with everything you need to get your old game to its new owner. Everything's pre-addressed, prepaid, insured, and tracked the whole way, so all you have to do is put it in the mail. Once your buyer receives the shipment, payment will be deposited into your Glide account. Use the cash to shop on Glide, have it transferred to your bank account, get a check mailed to you, or even be paid in Bitcoin. Even if you're not looking to sell, Glide's got a great selection of pre-owned games, phones, tablets, and iPods for stupidly reasonable prices. Sign up today, head to dtoid.tv/glide. It's a great service, and every sign up helps support Destructoid.